Hello, everyone. I hope all is well for you and your families. I'm so glad you could join me today for uh, what I hope you'll find to be a very informative discussion of business development techniques for insurance defense firms. I ask that you hold your questions till the end of my presentation, at which point I'll be happy to answer whatever questions you might have. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Richard Skolnick. I'm an attorney. I graduated Tulane University School of Law. I went on to get a master's degree in law from New York University. I practiced with two insurance defense firms for nearly 20 years. And in 1997, I created Legal Marketing Solutions in response to what I perceived to be a need for more creative client development techniques for defense firms. Over that 27-year period of time, I have generated more than $42 million in law firm fee income for my clients. Now, insurance companies are structured in unique and often confusing ways. Navigating the bureaucracies can be frustrating and quite time consuming. For example, just identifying the people who have the authority to actually send you a trial case or place you on a panel counsel list, or even pinpointing the areas of practice in which they may need additional claims litigation support from law firms. These all could be difficult questions to answer. This webinar is intended to offer a roadmap a bit to respond to these issues and give you concrete recommendations and methodologies for addressing these problems and several other problems that defense firms confront in their business development efforts. Now, I'm going to use the word insurance company or insurers sort of interchangeably with the large self-insureds because they work in pretty much the same way. So what are insurance carriers actually looking for? Well, the short answer is they're looking for trial firms. From an insurance company's perspective, the best way to achieve a good settlement is to be represented by a trial defense firm that has a good reputation for taking cases to verdict successfully, having a strong motion practice, and has a history of really good settlements. Uh, so when you're first approaching an insurance carrier, your first goal is to make your case that you have the experience and expertise to add value to their panel counsel lists. Now, I have found that the best way to actually break into an insurance carrier is through their specialized claims litigation units. Now, I'm going to explain what these units are as we move through this discussion, but suffice it to say, for the moment, that these units will give you the opportunity to really develop a relationship with adjusters and managers, and it often acts as a springboard to getting cases from other units of the same insurance carrier. So how do I actually influence claims executives? Well, first of all, I can assure you they are not looking for glossy brochures or high rankings on Google. What they are looking for is verification of your trial and litigation experiences and, of course, successes. Uh, Now, the best technique I have found for achieving this is a rather long introductory letter that's going to have a table of contents broken down by practice area. And in each practice area, we're going to discuss the trial and litigation histories of the firm. Now, the point of the letter is to really answer questions that they may have before they're actually asked. So we begin the letter with a narrative. Narrative will include the super lawyers in your firm, the bar committees you participate in, the longevity of the firm, um, how you train associates, perhaps even the number of cases you've taken to verdict successfully over the past 5 years or so. You're trying to give them a sense of the values of the firm and how your firm actually operates. Now, once we complete the narrative, we move to what I would consider the meat of the letter, which is the detailed outline of the trial, motion, and settlement successes of your firm. And the way we do that is going to be through actual specific examples. So we're going to give the case title, location of the matter, an outline of the facts, the strategy you may have employed in the case, the exposure, and the results. So by the time we get through the letter, you're going to have given the reader a pretty good idea of what your experience and expertise has been and how you might fit into their needs. Now, I'd like to touch on the pandemic for just a moment. I have found that the growth in litigation volume per practice area since the pandemic ended a couple of years ago is very uneven. Some practice areas are experiencing rapid litigation volume and rapid growth, whereas other practice areas are still struggling to catch up to the litigation volume they had prior to the pandemic. But one thing is for sure, that the competition among law firms to get placed on panels, to get tryout cases, uh, the competition has gotten far more intense. And this is the main reason why I'm trying to emphasize to you that if you're looking to grow your practice, either on a short-term or a long-term basis, that the key element in doing that, or one of the key elements in doing so, will be developing and enhancing your specialized practice areas. Now, the same business development problems that existed before still exist. Staff counsel continues to take on more litigation volume, taking it away from panel counsel lists. Panel counsel lists continue to be consolidated. And in doing so, many times law firms will be dropped from the panel counsel list without even knowing they're dropped. They just won't be receiving any new cases. The old patterns of attracting clients no longer seem constructive. You may have unusual circumstances in your firm. For example, a generational divide between the older partners who brought in much of the business in the past and the younger partners who aren't picking up the slack in terms of new business development. So how do we actually attack these problems? Well, the first overriding principle here is that marketing is not business development. Now, marketing gives you the tools for a good business development campaign. You need websites, you need CVs, but marketing in and of itself is not going to bring in any business for you. What actually brings in business is directly targeting and personally contacting the actual sources of business, which in this case are claims executives. Now, as I mentioned before, actually identifying the correct people who have the authority to send you cases can be very time consuming and often difficult and frustrating and challenging. But yet, it's absolutely necessary that you identify the right people who have the authority to help you. Otherwise, a really good presentation is going to be completely wasted because it'll be made to the wrong person. Now, claims departments are generally divided up into two very general categories. You have centralized units and decentralized units. In a centralized unit, you'll have a vice president of claims, a claims counsel in charge of litigation management, and they will make the decisions on tryout cases of who is placed on the panel or removed from the panel. And they will have a rather large geographic region to cover. Uh, in a decentralized system, the responsibilities and authority will fall to a smaller group of adjusters, managers, and supervisors who have a smaller geographic region to cover, and they will make the appropriate decisions. Now, at first blush, it would seem that at the very least in a centralized system, you pick up the phone, you call the vice president of claims, and you ask them whether or not they're planning on sending out tryout cases to new firms in the practice areas that you're looking to promote. Well, unfortunately, it just doesn't work quite that simply because word doesn't filter up from the ground level adjusters and managers up to the decision makers in these centralized systems on a regular basis. It may happen once a year, it may happen randomly. So whether it's a centralized or decentralized system, you still have to take the time to engage with ground level adjusters and managers to find out what it is that concerns them. And of course, I have found that they're very willing to tell you all their concerns when it comes to claims litigation. You may find out, for example, that they think the panel is overcharging them, or they think that their panel isn't getting the results they anticipated, or that there may be an imminent retirement of an attorney who they've relied on in the past, and he's going to create a gap in the panel counsel list in a couple of months. You're going to learn information that'll be vital for you when you actually do make your ultimate presentation to the decision maker. Now, generally, each practice area is going to have two basic types of panels. There's going to be a casualty defense panel and a coverage panel. Now, the larger insurance companies will have separate panel counsel lists for each. They don't like to cross-pollinate between the two. The smaller companies will have one panel counsel list that they'll draw upon generally for both coverage and defense. But even if you're dealing with a large company that has different people in charge of coverage and defense for that particular practice area, now you have two people to approach to make your case. Now, as I pointed out to you earlier, It's been my experience that the best way to break into an insurance carrier is through their specialized claims litigation units. Take the following example. You pick up the phone, you call an insurance carrier. You ask for the claims department. You make your way through hook or crook to the assistant vice president of claims in charge of general liability, and you ask them, are you planning on sending out any cases, trying out any new firms for your panel counsel list this year? You're going to get a very quick answer. It's going to be no. The panel's been frozen for years. Try in a year or two, and perhaps at that point there'll be a need. On the other hand, if you were to contact the appropriate people who are in charge of these specialized claims litigation units, you're going to have a far more welcoming conversation. They're going to want to hear about your expertise, your experience, your geographic reach. It's going to become a far more meaningful conversation for you that will start to plant the seeds for some growth in your practice. Now, keep in mind, your main interest is always the same here. You're trying to convey to them your trial successes, your motion successes, and your settlement successes. But you have to be careful about certain tripwires. Take the following example. You're assigned a new case from a new insurer. You speak to the adjuster, and you both agree the case is worth $100,000. 2 weeks before trial, you call the adjuster and you say, I've had 2 or 3 conversations with plaintiff counsel, and I don't think they're going to settle this case for $100,000. I think we're going to need 150 or 200,000. That's going to be the last case you get from that insurance carrier. Because what they really want is they want you to have not only realistic budgeting, but they want you to have budgeting that's actually a little bit high. Because as a practical matter, they want you to come in below budget. So whatever it is that you're budgeting, you're really trying to come in a bit high so you can come in under budget at the right time. Now, non-panel firms, like panel firms, also require approval from many insurance carriers. Um, so when does this occur? Well, you can get pretty much a pretty good flow of file referrals from as a non-panel firm, and it works. Two examples, for example, here. First case would be you practice in a remote area of the state, and or you have access to that area, or you're willing to travel to that area of the state. And the panel counsel list in that area of the state is not particularly robust, not as robust as the uh, panel counsel list in some of the larger cities. Um, Very often I find that in these remote areas, there's possibility of wanting to try out a new firm. Another example would be, let's say you're practicing in jurisdictions that do have robust liability panels, but the adjusters may not have complete confidence in their panels to handle a more complex case. So they'll look to outside counsel to handle the case. But again, your issue is really the same here. You're trying to develop a really good rapport with the adjusters. You want to give them timely reports and good budgeting and all of that. But the basic reality is you need to make sure that they like doing business with you. The more they like doing business with you, the more they're going to act as a referral source for you to get more cases from that unit or other units of the same insurance carrier. All right, so let's talk about some of the specializations that I've been referring to. What are these specializations? Well, first of all, they tend to be more complex in terms of the case than your standard slip and fall or standard auto accident. They tend to be of a higher monetary exposure. They're going to be in units that are called complex claims units, major case units, severity claims units, something along those lines. And each of those units is going to be broken down into subunits. And each of those subunits will have adjusters and managers who are experienced in litigating matters in certain practice areas. So let's talk about those practice areas. I'd like to give you a decent sampling of them. Certainly not comprehensive, but a decent sampling of the areas that I have found to be in highest demand. Now, unfortunately, one area that is in extremely high demand is sexual abuse, molestation, and sexual assault claims. Now, this is a very, very fast growing area, unfortunately, and it pays extremely well, and the litigation volume is increasing at a reasonably rapid pace. So is police misconduct, excessive force, malpractice of public officials, legacy claims like toxic torts or construction defect. These are all cases that insurance companies have a fairly sizable litigation volume, and they pay quite well. Mass torts are another area. Now, generally, when there's a mass tort event, it could be a bus accident or a toxic tort, there'll be a large national or regional law firm that monitors these cases. But you still need local counsel to actually handle them. So if you've had experience with mass torts, this is another good area to try to break into. And it pays pretty well as well. Employment litigation is another good area to pursue. Now, here, of course, we're talking about retaliatory firings and harassment, etc. Uh, this is a very good area. It's growing at a pretty good clip. There seems to be an ongoing need for good employment defense counsel throughout the industry. But a close cousin of that is directors and officers litigation. Now, here I'm not talking about D&O work for a large public company's board. I'm talking about the board of directors for nonprofits like religious organizations, condominium associations. They get sued as well, and they have to rely on the D&O experience of their representation. And once you're approved because of your, say, your D&O experience, then it opens the door for other cases. You get motor vehicle cases, you'll get premises cases, you'll get a variety of different types of cases because you've been approved as a D&O expert. Construction, of course, is another terrific area to have expertise in. Construction site injuries are always necessary to have experience in and to promote. In some states, like New York, for example, New York labor law is a specialization of sorts, which is a high-paying area involving construction site injuries. But I have found that construction defect work is another huge area of need that insurance carriers have. If you have construction defect experience, I have found that that is a great area to break into insurance carriers, and it's fairly high paying. Now, a close cousin of that is going to be the malpractice of design professionals. Now, this is an area of practice that is probably among the highest paying areas that insurance companies pay for. And it's of just surprisingly high demand for litigation buying. There's a tremendous number of these cases that are evolving. So any experience you have with design professional malpractice will not only bolster your argument about handling construction defect cases, but in and of itself, it's going to be an excellent area for you to promote. Medical negligence is another area. Now, obviously, in order to represent doctors or hospitals or surgery centers, you need good medical negligence experience. But you also need medical negligence experience to break into long-term care facilities. So if you're looking to break into a chain of long-term care facilities, you're going to need medical negligence experience. And once you break in because of that experience, it'll open up the door for many other cases, very similar to the condominium association or religious group. You're going to have employment cases. You're going to have premises cases. You have a whole variety of cases that come your way simply because you've been approved because of your medical negligence experience. Miscellaneous professional malpractice is another excellent growing area. Now, we're talking here about a potpourri of miscellaneous professionals. Could be malpractice of lawyers, malpractice of accountants, malpractice of insurance brokers, real estate brokers, financial brokers, could be surveyors. It's a whole potpourri of different professionals. And this is a growing area of practice in terms of litigation volume, and it pays really well. Long-haul trucking is also a terrific area to pursue and promote. If you've had experience with long-haul trucking, it's a great area to promote. The interstate rules can be pretty complex. And from a fee generation standpoint, one good long-haul trucking accident would be the equivalent in fee generation to 20 automobile accidents. So it's an excellent area to pursue. Farm and ranch is sort of an unusual area. Uh, if you've represented small businesses in the past, really all a farm or ranch is another small business. Now, clearly, in order to qualify, it would certainly bolster your argument if you've had experience with crop insurance or you've had experience with malpractice of veterinarians, something along those lines. But really, what I find they're looking for is a good understanding of how a farm or a ranch actually operates. So if you've gotten some understanding of that from either being raised on a farm or a ranch or had a friend that was raised on a farm or a ranch or some other mechanism where you really understand the operations of a farm or ranch, you're going to find that that in concert with your small business experience might actually qualify you to participate on that panel. Now, if you happen to have a practice located in a state that has a high Native American population, you probably have casinos. And that casino work can produce a good deal of liability defense work. In order to get that work, you really need to be on the tribal court panel. So trying to get on a tribal court panel is another very positive way to start generating some liability defense business. Now, if you have aviation experience, this is a terrific area of practice. So it's also among the highest paying areas that insurance companies have. And here I'm talking about small plane crashes, helicopter crashes, issues involving small airports. This is another good area to pursue and promote. Now, if you happen to practice in a state that has that is plagued by severe weather events, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, first party property cases are going to be abundant after one of these events. So you want to promote that before the event occurs. So if you've had any first party property experience, you want to promote that as an area that you can assist an insurance carrier with. Now, let me give you a case example. This sort of pulls together what I've been referring to thus far today. Some years ago, I was approached by a defense firm uh, that wanted to expand their client base. They they never really considered themselves to be anything but a really good general liability defense firm. They didn't recognize or promote any specializations that they may have had. But after sitting down with them and understanding what their practice was, I came to find out that they had represented a number of municipalities and continue to. Uh, in that representation, they had quite a few different cases. They had some appointment cases. They had a couple of car chase cases. They had a construction defect case or two. They actually did have some specializations that they didn't recognize or promote. So we began the process of what I described here today, the type of business development campaign we've been talking about. I approached some insurance carriers, and one of the larger insurance carriers agreed to place the firm on the conflict panel. They got maybe one conflict case a year, and a good year, maybe two. After a couple of years of making follow-up phone calls to make sure that everything was going well, I came to find out that they hadn't begun yet, but they were planning on consolidating their panel counselors. Now, because my client had developed a really good rapport with the adjusters really liked doing business with them. My firm was granted an interview. And when the consolidation actually occurred, uh, my client was elevated from the conflict panel to the general liability panel. And instead of getting one or two conflict cases a year, they were receiving 5 to 10 general liability cases per month. Now, this is not an unusual circumstance. I have found this with many different law firms in many different states who simply don't recognize the value of promoting and expanding upon their areas of expertise. Now, business development takes patience. It is not an event, it's a process. You have to plant some seeds, you have to nourish them by follow ups. You didn't create your client base overnight, and you're not going to expand it overnight. But I can assure you this, that if you follow the kind of business development campaign that I've been outlining here today, you will find that within 12 to 24 months of initiating that campaign, you will have a pretty good flow of new cases coming your way from new sources of business that'll create a really good foundation for your future growth.